Respected Principal of the Institute, Dr. Brande sir, Vice Principal of the Institute, Dr. Sunita Patil ma'am, Chief Guest for today's program, Dr. Ketan Kotecha sir, my senior, Dr. Hariram Chavan sir, colleague HODs, deans, faculty members, and participants. Wish you a very good morning. On behalf of KJ Somaya Institute of Engineering and Information Technology, I, Dr. Radhika Kodecha, welcome you all to the inaugural function of short-term training program on leveraging AI and data analytics for healthcare, sponsored by AICTE and organized by Department of Information Technology. I am the head of IT department and the coordinator of this STTP. Department of IT believes in project-based learning, and we strive to contribute towards the society through technology. Especially healthcare and agriculture have been our major focal points. As a support towards our mission, we have been fortunate to be sponsored by All India Council of Technical Education under AICTE Quality Improvement Scheme 2019-20 for the organization of this STTP. Department of IT is fortunate to have the aim of this STTP for providing a platform to all the participants for learning to apply AI and data analytics in healthcare. The sessions shall focus on providing knowledge of decision support systems in healthcare, implementing health informatics, modeling disease progressions, and several other scenarios where AI can contribute towards healthcare. We have seen a very tragic pandemic in the recent time, and only the power of data analytics and AI can help us to strengthen our immunity by just being quickly aware if we are diagnosed of the disease or not. The STTP shall have substantial focus on addressing various healthcare issues arising due to COVID pandemic. On this occasion, I'm delighted to invite our guiding light and an inspiration to the entire women fraternity, the Vice Principal of this institute, to please brief about KJSIIT and wish a good motivation to all the participants of the STTP. Ma'am, please address the gathering.
Thank you, Radhika. Good morning. Chief guest for today's inaugural session, Dr. Ketan Kotecha, Principal of our institute, Dr. Suresh Ukrande sir, Coordinator for this STTP, Dr. Radhika, Heads of various departments, Deans of various sections, faculty, staff, and dear participant. I, Dr. Sunita Patil, Vice Principal of KJ Somaya Institute of Engineering and Information Technology, Sion, Mumbai, welcome you all for the inaugural ceremony of AICTE AQI sponsored STTP. Dear participants, as the head of the department, Radhika Kotecha has already mentioned about the selection of the topic of our AICTE selected STTP today. So dear participants, from the topic itself, you might have seen that the kind of programs or the activities or the sessions we organize at our institute, KJ Somaya Institute of Engineering and Information Technology, we try to contribute the best to the society, to the nation, and to the world at large, and this activity is the part of the same. So dear participants, though we are only the undergraduate institute with 4 departments or the 4 programs, computer engineering, information technology, electronics and telecommunication engineering, and recently we have started with the artificial intelligence and data science program at our institute, and we are having only one undergraduate postgraduate program with artificial intelligence as a specialization, and only 360 intake for undergraduate and 18 intake with postgraduate. So this is a very small institute having a last 20 years existence, but the way we are growing with the kind of support by our management, Somaya management, and the kind of guidance and motivation by our principal, Dr. Suresh Ukrande, who is also last 2 terms, who was there with University of Mumbai as a Dean for Faculty of Technology. And recently, sir is contributing to the University of Mumbai as an Associate Dean for Faculty of Science and Technology. So with sir's guidance and the contribution of our all faculty members, staff members, and the students, we are trying our best to contribute in a best possible way to the society and to the nation at large. So looking at the continuous contribution of our stakeholders, let me share with you few of our achievements which are notably worthy achievements. So our institute have been accredited with NAC with A grade and 3.21 CGPA in its first cycle itself. 3 of our programs have been accredited by National Board of Accreditation. Our institute is regularly participating in AICTE CII Impact Survey, wherein 2 times we have been awarded with the gold category award and 2 times recently we have been awarded with the platinum category award. Ministry of Education's Innovation Cell recognized our institution's Innovation Council, that is IIC, as a top IIC in Western region since last 2 years. Last year, we have been awarded with the 3rd rank in the Western region. And recently, since many more participating institutions have been increased in Innovation Council, so we have been ranked with the 5th rank at Western region. Recently in Indian Rankings 2020, that is NIRF, our institute have been placed in the rank band of 251 to 300. That is one of the biggest achievement with very less intake and a very small institute having only 20 years of existence. Recently also in Atal rankings, that is ARIA 2020, our institute have been ranked in the private institutions category with top 50 ranking. Our students are participating in various technical as well as non-technical activities nationwide. So we have various professional bodies, technical professional bodies at our institute like IEEE, CSI, IET, IET, IST. So our students regularly participate in all the national level contests organized by these professional organizations. So every year national Robocon contests have been organized and our institute is doing very great in this competition. And since last 4 years, we have been ranked with the 12th rank, 9th rank, 5th rank, and 3rd rank at the National Robocon contest also. Recently, our student satellite team has sent a proposal, and their proposal for launching the experimental satellite PS4 with the orbital platform program is selected by ISRO. And they have started by winning the Touch the Jovian Moon, that is the land mission, and that is one of the recognition our institute have been received. Recently, University of Mumbai have been awarded our institute with the Best College Award under the Urban Region section. And similarly, as I have mentioned, we have been very active with the national level, regional level activities with all the technical professional bodies. So the professional body, Indian Society for Technical Education, Computer Society of India, the Institution of Engineering and Technology have already awarded our institute, and we have been regularly receiving the recognition as Best Engineering College as well as Best College under our Mumbai region. So these are the kind of achievements due to the regular contribution of our all the stakeholders, mostly our faculty members, staff members, and students are showing the kind of way we are progressing. And this is only because of the support and mentorship and the guidance of our Somaya management and our leader, Dr. Suresh Ukrande. So dear participants, I'm sure for this coming week, the kind of guidance you will be getting through all the experts or the speakers we have selected under this STTP. And this STTP is going to be organized in 2 slots. So definitely, I'm sure the kind of guidance you will be getting in this field will be tremendous, and you will be very happy by participating in this AICTE sponsored STTP. So I wish all the very best luck to Department of Information Technology, the whole organizing team under the leadership of Dr. Radhika and Dr. Hariram Chauhan. And I wish you all the very best. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And this was very motivating, and I'm sure all the participants will now be more excited towards the STTP. And to kickstart the STTP, we have with us as chief guest for this inaugural as well as the keynote speaker for the STTP, Dr. Ketan Kotecha, sir. Sir is currently the Dean of Faculty of Engineering, Symbiosis International Deemed University, the Director of Symbiosis Institute of Technology, the Head of Symbiosis Center for Applied Artificial Intelligence, and Chief Executive Officer for Symbiosis Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. To brief some of the recent achievements of Sir, he is a recent recipient of Erasmus and Faculty Mobility Grants for European Union Leadership for Academicians Program from Ministry of Education, Government of India, in collaboration with IIT Kharagpur and University of Cambridge, UK. Sir is offered Duo India Professor Fellowship under Asia Europe meeting with Brunel University, UK. Recently, he has received research grants worth INR 1.6 crores under the Scheme for Promotion of Academic Research collaboration by Ministry of Education, Government of India, in collaboration with Arizona State University, USA, and University of Queensland, Australia. Sir has invited and sponsored from Embassy of USA to participate in US-India Higher Education Collaboration Workshop in Washington, D.C. He's a team member of the nationwide initiative of AI and deep learning skills and research named LeadingIndia.ai, sponsored by Royal Academy of Engineering, UK under Newton Bhabha Fund. Kotecha sir has authored numerous papers presented in conferences and journals of international repute. He has been serving as a founding provost of Parul University, one of the largest universities in Gujarat. He has been the dean and director of Institute of Technology, Nirma University, Gujarat. Sir is the member of academic councils and governing councils of various universities. He is the independent director of Gujarat Informatics as nominated by Government of Gujarat. He is a plenary speaker for events at machine learning research labs at USA and Europe. Sir has been invited at several countries and he is a pioneer in education technology and research. He has exceptional teaching skills, which is why a large number of his students are at leadership positions across the world. Personally, I have had the opportunity to learn from Sir during my master's a decade ago. I still remember his words on how important it is to reach the destination. He used to grade us in binary, saying that in life, either you win or you lose, there is nothing in between. So we were told that if we get the final answer right, we're going to get full marks, otherwise, we're going to get a zero. And this is how he made us excel in the toughest courses, imbibed a sense of perfection in us, and got us to the right outcomes, definitely. Sir, I was a small town girl who got inspired from you and did my PhD in machine learning. And it will be an honor if you could motivate all the participants present here.
Thanks, Dr. Radhika, for the nice introduction. First of all, congratulations to Dr. Suresh and Dr. Sunita. I think from little bit whatever I learned in last 10 minutes, I can make out that these two people, along with of course all the faculty members and students and the management, has really worked very hard, because in just 20 years of young age, achieving such laurels in NIRF and other are really remarkable. So real congratulations, because all the participants are also, I'm from engineering, I'm sure they know that it's very, very difficult right now to even survive and sustain in engineering institutions. And these two leaders, are doing excellent job. So congratulations to both of them, and in fact, entire institute. And I'm really proud to see Radhika here at this stage where she is head of the department. I've seen her, a very small baby, doing masters with me at Nirma University. So, and she is now getting the AICT grant for organizing such a nice program. So, real congratulations to her as well. I'm going to take a very detailed talk about futuristic directions of AI and healthcare. I'm sure I'll be giving you 10 different directions, and where there can be 30 more PhDs as well. But that is after this inaugural. So I will just tell something about the need of this particular technology in next 3-4 minutes. See, we know that how the world is moving and evolving rather. First, we were like hunters and gatherers. We used to collect these stones and we were surviving. And it was there for millions of years. After that, there was a new age, which was an agriculture age. And it was like a boom. That is a huge change. And that was lasted for maybe thousands of years. And then we moved to the industrial age. And industrial age went for a couple of centuries. And then we moved to the information technology age. And we feel still that we are in IT age, but I think we have moved one more step ahead, and we are already into augmented age. Augmented age, I mean that there should be, and there must be rather, synergy between human and a computer. And I don't think that, without that, anyone will survive easily and anyone will do the best job. Okay. There are a lot of examples I can give. Of course, in my talk also I'll give that, in AI and healthcare, let's say. So healthcare is really booming because of AI, and AI is also getting a lot of, food from healthcare as well. And this synergy can do wonders, which individually human beings or individually AI won't be able to do ever. So that's a age which is an augmented age, which is coming up right now. And in this augmented age, always the worry by the students, by the faculties, or by the education fraternity, or in general, will be what will happen to the job market, how it will evolve. So I'll give you just 5 bullet points, what you can do if you really want to survive, sustain, and grow in this kind of augmented age. The first and foremost thing you can do is you can step up. Step up means you can work at a strategic level, like Microsoft or Google must be doing. They decide the strategy and then they get the work done from all of us, and they are into forefront always. So do something at the strategic level. Don't do just at the bottom level, but decide some good strategy so that in long run it pays off. That is one thing. Second, you can do something is step aside. Step aside, I mean, do something which computers are not good at right now. For example, emotional intelligence. They are still doing, but cannot match with the human EQ as of right now. Or doing influencing someone, clinching a deal in a business. So all these things computer can't do as of now, at least. And that's what you can be master there. Then you will survive in the job market. So first one was, step up, doing some strategic. Second is like step aside, doing something where computers are not good at. The third one was what you can do is step in. Step in means you find out the mistakes in the computer algorithms, right? So computer is doing some automation, you find out the mistakes. And there's a well-known example there whereby chairman of Federal Reserve Bank in USA applied for an housing loan. It was rejected. Why it was rejected? Because computer predicted that he was a chairman and now he's not a chairman. So he's going down in his career, and that's what he should not be given loan. And that's a mistake because he's anyway multimillionaire. Right? So this kind of mistakes, gross mistakes where common sense is missing, you can find out in the algorithm. So this kind of third categories of jobs which can be in existence right now. The fourth category of job which will be possible is step narrow. Step narrow means find out something or some business where automation is costly, right? So it's very difficult being engineering mindset or computer engineering mindset. It's very difficult to find out something where automation won't help. Our mindset needs to be changed totally. But there's a very good standard example there again from IIM Ahmedabad, where there's a person still in Ahmedabad who sells Parle-G biscuits to individual retailers. He buys bulks from Parle-G and sells to the individual retailers. And costing is same. Whatever amount he gets, same amount he sells also. So people were surprised that what is his business model? The business model is he makes 1,000 rupees a day, 10,000 rupees a day, rather, from the selling the empty cartoons to pastiwala.com. That is his business model. Right. So there, if he tries to do automation, your GST and all kinds of juggleries will ruin his business. So this is the fourth category of job which will be in existence, which is of course difficult to find out in 21st century. And the fifth category of job where you augment AI, learn deep learning, and apply everywhere. It means, mostly as a computer engineer, as an AI analyst or AI engineer will be in the fifth category. We need to learn AI. We need to embrace that and apply in the different domains and do some augmentation, right? So that's what I wanted to tell, to just give you more motivation towards why everyone should jump into AI, because it's changing the entire mindset, entire world totally differently, and we should not be delaying that. I'm not telling that AI will replace all kinds of jobs, but definitely the jobs with AI will replace jobs without AI. That is for sure, right? So that's what I'm sure everyone will understand. And don't forget, step up, step aside, step in, step narrow, or step forward. These are the 5 categories of jobs which will be always been there in the market. So I'm sure you will educate to your students as well. So with that, thank you very much for inviting me for this inaugural function. And again, I convey my best wishes to Radhika and the entire team for successful conduction of this particular program. And I'm sure that there should be some outcome of the program as well, that after a few months or couple of years, everyone should be called and asked that what are the implementation you have done, because finally that matters. Otherwise, preaching will work for 5 days and there will be a certificate and it will be in files and in maybe in the PBS file or appraisal files, right? But ideally, one is to execute as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your address. And I assure you that we shall ensure that the outcome of STTP is actually reflected apart from our appraisal forms. And I still remember you saying the same thing while we were studying, and I have been practicing it for the whole time, that let us do something which actually contributes to our growth and not only stays on paper. I've been practicing it since last decade. And just to give some insights, that we have been receiving so many applications for this STTP. Basically, earlier it was to be done offline. Because of the pandemic, we had to do it online. And we are now allowed 2 slots by AICTE. Again, because it's a quality improvement scheme, AICTE has asked us to restrict the number of participants. And we had 2 rounds of evaluation. Initially, we received so many registrations. So we did another round of evaluation where we asked the research interests of participants, and we wanted to know how many of them are so eager to learn about AI and data analytics for healthcare. And the set of participants that are present with us today are the ones, those who have shown extreme interest. Currently, because of the pandemic, the schedules have totally shifted. There's ongoing exams for almost all universities, and especially University of Mumbai, and I'm sure across the country as well. But we have participants from 15 states of the country who have shown a deep profile in AI and healthcare. And I see most of them have joined for the inaugural, and some of us had requested that we have exams in the morning and we should join by 10:30. So it has been a focus since the beginning that we ensure the STTP is towards the quality point. And I'm sure you will come across some people in the future who will say that we have been attending your session and that's how we have achieved something. And I know that all of your talks are always giving us some definitions for masters and PhD, and I'm sure that will be one today as well. So thank you so much, sir, for your address and spending out your valuable time. And amidst all this, we all do this under the guidance of our vice principal, ma'am, you have already heard, and our respected principal, sir. As ma'am already described, he has been the dean of university for the last 3 terms, and he has played a substantial role in revising the curriculum, making it state of the art, that the students are industry ready. He is a guiding light for us, and under his leadership, visionary leadership, the institute has received numerous achievements in the last 4 years since he joined. And it is altogether an opportunity to be mentored by him. So on this occasion, I request Principal Sir, Dr. Suresh Shukrande, sir, to please address the gathering.
Good morning to all of you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good morning to all of you. Chief guest of today's STTP, Dr. Ketan Kotecha. When I was listening to his profile, when Dr. Radhika was listening, I found him a really international personality, and we are honored. Our institute is honored to have him as a chief guest. At the same time, after this inaugural function, he is going to be there with us for 90 minutes. 90 minutes, you'll have a feast of knowledge in this field. Our Vice Principal, Dr. Sunita Patil, Dr. Radhika, HOD IT, heads of other departments, Dr. Hari Ram Chavan, deans, faculties, staff members, and participants from 15 states across India. Welcome to this STTP on artificial intelligence and data analytics in healthcare domain. See, this is the one of the major domain which needs to be addressed along with that other domain. What I speak always is the agriculture. And if we look at, there are various domains which needs to be discussed, talked, and a lot of things are being addressed, done by central government, state government, and various bodies to have a substantial output in agriculture, substantial growth in this healthcare domain. And you'll come to know about more in this next 5 days as far as healthcare domain is concerned. There is a huge investment by central government, huge investment by state government in both the sectors, and there are many other allied sectors. But these two sectors are very important from the Indian's perspective. Rather, at whole world, we can say, health of every individual is very important. And if we don't pay attention to the agri, then it's no question of surviving of humankind on this earth. And with this principle, our management has decided to work in these two domains, agriculture and healthcare. And since last 4 or 5 years, our faculties, students are working very closely in these two domains. We have our Somaiya Hospital in the campus itself, our faculties and doctors from the Somaiya Hospital, even student participation is there, working on various problems faced by the doctors, actual problems faced in the hospital, and we are providing the solutions to it. We are addressing their problems, and that's what the education institute should work on. It's not simply we should have academics and teach us what is given in the books and do some practicals, and that's the end of it. Those days are gone now. So we have to have whatever we learn day to day, maybe from book or now we can say Google. It should be applied, tested, and useful to the society. So with that perspective, as per the guidance of the management, as per the vision of management, we at KGS IIT, in short, what we say, we are working, and at the same time we are working with the agricultural field also in the Karnataka and in Maharashtra at 2-3 places. So various projects are going in the healthcare domain, agricultural domain, and that's a great learning for the students, for the faculty members, and faculties are writing major research proposals on these two domains, and some of the projects have got grants for execution of those projects, also agricultural projects. So that is the thing which we wanted to inculcate, and we are to some extent successful in that. And whatever the achievements our Vice Principal Dr. Sunita Patil has said, we have received from the various professional bodies, universities, and top ranking agencies at national level. That is the outcome of all this. If I have to narrate in a minute, 4 times recognition by AICTE CII, Gold and Platinum, 4 times recognition by IET, Engineering and Technology, Institute of Engineering and Technology body, 4 times in a succession, 2 times by CSI, once by IST. That is the institute, individual faculty, students, and that is different. University has also recognized our institute best institute in the university out of 800 institutes. And above all, the recognition by IIC is top 3 in Western region and top 5 in Western region in 1819 and 1920. The same time, best college award by University of Mumbai, the same time recognition by in ARIA and NIRF ranking, being a very small institute. And it's very proud moment for all of us that ISRO has selected our team for launching this nano satellite, and our student team is working on it. So all these are achievements because of constant support from management, hard work by the faculty members, and equal response given, contribution done by the students. So we are growing, and at the same time we have decided, as AICTE has identified the 9 emerging areas: artificial intelligence, IoT, cybersecurity, blockchain, augmented reality, robotics, and cyber security, quantum computing, 3D printing. On all these domains also we are working, but major focus is on AI and data science, and in the healthcare and agricultural domain. That what we have decided. And along with these 2 domains, we are working in other 7 domains also. And that is the what are the problems we face in day-to-day life as an individual, as a society. If we use these 9 technologies to address the problems will get a solution with a minimum possible time and with a optimal cost. And that's why we are focusing on all these 9 technologies. It's a part of curriculum in the University of Mumbai in all the branches. And of course, we deliver the same thing at our institute. If I tell something about our institute, that's Somaiya Vidya Vihar, which I should have been told in the beginning. It's a 60-year-old trust, Somaiya Vidya Vihar, and it has 34 institutions. Approximately 40,000 students are taking education right from KG to PhD, and nearly around 2,000 faculty members, equal number of support staff. And previous year at Vidya Vihar campus, the institutes from engineering, management, art, science, commerce are clubbed together, and it has formed a Somaiya Vidya Vihar University. So that is the big achievement for this Somaiya institutes. And our institute is still affiliated to University of Mumbai, and will still grow. We will be growing horizontally and vertically as far as intake is concerned in new branches like AI, artificial intelligence and data science. We'll have more PG programs and more PhD programs in coming years. And the culture, what we have thought of research and development culture, innovation culture, along with this academics will be focused and will be achieved. And these awards and recognitions and will follow. We don't work for them, but if we work for the quality, we work for the academic, we work for the research development, innovation, and all these things, then these awards will follow. We believe in that. And with this note, I will stop here and congratulate all the participants for being here for this inaugural function, and at the same time be there for 5 days to gain a more in-depth knowledge in this domain. Thank you very much. And all the best.
Thank you so much, Principal Sir. That was a detailed review of our institute and a huge motivation from your end towards all the participants. And before we wind up with this short inauguration, I cannot end before thanking, although this is an inaugural ceremony, but it should not complete without thanking few people. The first and foremost is Dr. Hariram Chauhan, sir, my senior in the department and an unconditional supporter in all the endeavors of the department, for his thorough guidance in every stage and every phase for this STTP as well as all the work in the department. The coordinators, the co-coordinators of this STTP, Professor Vijaya Pincharkar, Professor Reena Lokre, Professor Sarita Rathod, and Professor Prashant Sawant, for being extremely desperate and always being available for the preparations of this STTP, and for the kind of the spirit they have shown that yes, we also want to be a part of this STTP, which is going to focus on healthcare. And having heard so much from the experts, I'm sure that we will be able to sustain and strengthen the society by what we learn. So with this note, I mark an end towards the inaugural ceremony, and I thank all the audiences who have joined specially for the inaugural function. Thank you so much for gracing the inaugural. And Principal Sir, with your permission, we shall now switch over to the keynote address.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. And we now begin with the keynote address. And I request Kotecha sir to take over, and it will be an honor to listen to you again.
So good morning again. Thanks again, Dr. Suresh and Dr. Sunita. I think the way in which in inaugural I described the strategic role, I think both of them have taken, because management can guide or you can execute, but I'm sure both of them have devised a great strategy to uplift this institute, along with my brilliant student, Dr. Radhika and others. Let me share quickly my screen and start. Yeah. I'm sure it's visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Um, so topic given to me is AI for healthcare, and the goal of the first speaker should be to give a lot of directions to think, so that in next 5 days you can address some of them, and otherwise I'm sure it will continue, as Radhika was also mentioning, that it will be a lifelong kind of thing. I'll just start with a small introduction to my own center, which I run here at Symbiosis. We have Symbiosis Center for Applied Artificial Intelligence. We tell that as a SCAI, SCAI. We work in different domains of AI, and there are 3 verticals. One is AI research, AI consultation, and AI training as well. We have trained some of the industry people as well from different industries here in Hinjawadi and others. And majorly 2 domains we are working. One is in healthcare, applying all these technologies to healthcare, as well as to the robotics as well. I have in my team a couple of more faculty members, around 10 PhD students and around 39 undergraduate students. Those who have been selected after thorough scrutiny in my team, including, we also offer internship. So there are students from outside colleges as well, including a student from IIT Kharagpur doing an internship with us in reinforcement learning. So there are various collaborations we have. I'll just quickly go through that. We have a project with University of Queensland, Australia, which is a very high QS ranking university of the world, which is on explainable AI, which is a most important topic of healthcare in AI. Then second, we have a huge grant again with Arizona State University on fake news detection. We have a collaboration in Mumbai, which is with Hinduja Hospital on cardiovascular disease for AI. One more laboratory we have a tie-up for a disease called cystic fibrosis, which is not prevalent in India, but is coming now in India from Europe. So we are doing already some research on that. We have collaboration with Tech Mahindra, and we have a makers lab here in our institute with the collaboration. We run a very big hackathon for Tata Motors, and more than 500 teams across the country. It was a physical hackathon, and participated in that, including most of the IITs as well. We have a small project of landmine detection with DRDO here in Pune. We have a project with UK government, which is Royal Academy of Engineering. A very interesting project we do again in healthcare, and that is finding the retinopathy of premature baby, analyzing the retinopathy rather of premature babies, which is actually the main reason of blindness in our country. And there are extremely less doctors available who are expert in that. We got a fantastic result using deep learning, and the results are better than the expert doctors as well as of now. So we are publishing and patenting that idea. A couple of more grants we have applied with one more university in UK as well, and one more project just completed with Brunel University with again UK. And there are several other projects are in pipeline, which we are applied. Some of the results are still pending, and large number of course publications has come out from this center. So having said and given the introduction from about the center, I will devise the talk like first few minutes I will tell you extremely basics about machine learning and deep learning for maybe 5 to 6 slides, and then couple of slides on achievements by Google and all about AI in healthcare, and then entire last 1 hour will be future direction, so research directions in AI and healthcare. That is the goal for me today till I think almost 12 o'clock. So I'm sure, as Dr. Radhika was mentioning, that all of you are very eager to know about AI in healthcare. It means you have prior knowledge about all these technologies, machine learning, deep learning. So in the previous slide, I was trying to tell about the difference. I'm sure everyone knows the difference that AI is a umbrella term, and within that there is machine learning, and within that now there is a deep learning which is very popular because of two reasons. One is because of massive amount of data which is available, and second, massive amount of computational power which is available. Otherwise, it is very similar to neural network, which was there in existence since 1950, right? But there are two major changes now of data, sensors, and computational power. So again, it is in limelight. And there's a very important difference between machine learning and deep learning. Machine learning requires a lot of handcrafting of the feature before machine can start working on it, before AI start working here. So there's a lot of handcrafting of the features is required. In nutshell, if I want to identify this is a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler as an input, I need to give features corresponding to four-wheeler and two-wheeler handcrafted to the machine, and then machine can classify that. But in case of deep learning, I need not to do that. There is no handcrafting. Everything is automated. You just give the images of four-wheelers and two-wheelers. In fact, more number of images are required here. And then machine learns automatically that four-wheeler will have this kind of features and two-wheeler have some different kind of features. So there's a huge transition also in the technologies concerned from machine learning to deep learning. Here there's a lot of mathematics, so now it has been almost obsolete. There's a large number of courses we were teaching when I was a student here in feature extraction, but that's not required now. In fact, very little required now. And then deep learning takes care about all these things. So I'm sure this is very basic of machine learning and deep learning, which everyone knows here. And there are three major categories. There are several, but three are major. One is supervised, second is unsupervised, and third is reinforcement. People are talking about semi-supervised, and there are several other categories as well, but these are the major three categories in which machine learning has been divided, where this is very easy for a machine, but in practical scenario, most of the time you will undergo unsupervised learning, or maybe I would say semi-supervised learning, because labeling of the data is always an issue for a practical implementation. And then learning from mistakes like human beings. So if you want to go more towards generalized artificial intelligence, like computers exactly try to mimic human behavior, I'm sure you need to study reinforcement learning. So there's a lot of theory has been developed, and recent ones I'll be telling you in some time. What is the recent things getting done in reinforcement learning, which is trying to capture what human is doing by the machine exactly. There are various algorithms of machine learning in supervised and unsupervised domain. I'm sure this is a traditional way where almost all of you must be teaching or learning or knowing this particular algorithms, like support vector machines or Bayesian networks or ensemble methods and fuzzy means k-means algorithms or SVR. Right? So there are several of the methods. I'm not putting all the methods here. So basically they do either classification or regression or clustering. So this is like a traditional machine learning, very base where I'm sure it is like a Microsoft Word. Every other person in this world now need to know this to apply this particular technique into their domain. Maybe if it is a mechanical engineering, then also if they know this applied tools, they can do a lot of new things in Industry 4.0, digital twins or 3D printer and so on and so forth. And this only I have placed here to show you that AI is everywhere. There is hardly any industry where AI is not used now. The most important use of AI started in finance domain. That is heaviest use as of now as well. But it is there, a lot of things are in healthcare domain. And I think Dr. Suresh was telling it's a very opt thing that in agriculture also, because finally we are in a agriculture driven country. So huge scope in that as well, in real estate, social media marketing as well, in defense, smart homes, cybersecurity, insurance. There are applications now coming where if you are not going to gym, your insurance premium will be double. That will be tracked by the sensors which are within your body. So then event management. I'm sure everyone knows of the U.S. president won the previous, of course, U.S. president won the presidency because of a lot of help from social media. Intelligent transportation systems, the future is coming where connected vehicles and where car will talk to other vehicles, right, and decide what is the traffic conditions and so many other things. In education, you see, we are the least affected right now, even after Corona, just because of technology and a lot of things in AI. I've seen these softwares where exams are conducted automatically and AI using AI's surveillance of copying or cheating in the examination everywhere, right? So media, gaming, since long they are using the AI person, hospitality management or entertainment. So it's everywhere, right? And that's what I think is also important, that everyone should be learning. And again, I always tell that basics of AI is like learning Microsoft Word or maybe a simple tool like calculator maybe, so that it's you cannot tell that it just belongs to computer engineers. It's a tool where everyone should know and apply it in their particular domain, and that is the situation has come now. And whatever the methods I explained in a couple of slides back, they were the normal machine learning algorithms. But then in deep learning, there are a lot of algorithms again, and the most four popular algorithms are, convolution neural network, which are extremely good at image recognition kind of task. Then recurrent neural network. Basically, they have started with very good at text processing kind of application. Then autoencoders, again, they are very good in image processing, but in an unsupervised way. So they are doing wonders in case of deep learning. And the magical thing, which is generative adversarial network, they are real magics or magicians of deep learning. They do wonders which we can't even imagine. So I'm sure you people must be having some flavor, or maybe teaching this, or maybe researching in one of the directions here. And GAINS are, I'm sure, has created a lot of disruptions already in several industries. That's not a topic today, but I'm sure those who are interested can read a lot on that. There is a website which is GAINS Zoo, ZOO, where 100% of the information about GAIN till date is available in one site. So there is a huge amount. I think there are thousands of papers on that. So let me quickly start with the topic which is of STTP here and given to me today. Why AI for healthcare? You see, this particular slide tells why. Right? According to WHO, for 1,000 people, there should be one doctor, but in our country, it is less than half. Right? So we need 2 times more doctors, which is almost impossible to produce. Couple of reasons. One is, it's not an overnight job to get good expert doctors. And second, obviously, the population is increasing faster, maybe faster rate here. So it's very, very difficult to pop up here. And that's what, again, augmentation is the possible solution. I never tell, and it is impossible also, that doctors will be replaced by AI algorithms. Like, we also feel at times that we will be replaced by MOOC courses or online teaching, but there is no substitute of physical teaching. Not only teachers, but I'm sure students have also realized now that the exposure you get once you come to the campus, you get friendship with the students, others, and so many other things you achieve, which is impossible to achieve on online teaching learning. That's what none of the method or none of the algorithm I'm telling here, which will replace any of the doctors. It is impossible. But at the same time, the doctors who are using AI will be definitely replaced by doctors who are not using AI. That is also true, right? So I'm sure that whatever we do and whatever we tell to the outside world as an engineers to the doctors, our line of action should be that it is helping the doctors, and it is true as well. So AI for healthcare, it has been used widely. First is in predictive analysis. A lot of predictions of the disease diagnosis and prognosis have been done using AI, and assisted robot surgeries also in reality now it is possible. There are softwares available which works like a nurse, and maybe 90% of the work which nurses are doing is possible to automate, or maybe guiding to the patient is possible. In administrative task also AI is used, and all these things if you do, that's really helping, if not entire world, for India for sure, right? Because the healthcare revolution is yet to come. The healthcare is very costly in general if you go to other countries. So we need to keep it cost affordable to our country. At the same time, it should be reaching to the entire country, single villager as well, which is extremely a big challenge. And I'm sure AI can fulfill that particular challenge if it is used in a very effective way. And that is only possible if the technology guys comes and closer to the doctors and provide the solutions. This is a very popular picture I'm sure everyone has seen, and that is from Google, the talk by Sundar Pichai, where he has mentioned about how Google is now converting itself from a tech company to the healthcare company. Right? That's surprising maybe to us, but the prediction is in next 5 years of time, Google will be the largest healthcare company in the world, because they will use all the data available and given by us and do a lot of predictions. One of the prediction is by taking the image of a retina, you can find out all these parameters of a particular person. This data has come from Bangalore, and then Google has developed an algorithm, and this particular device is selling again in Bangalore. Right? So that's his strategic management. Google is doing excellently well. And this is a pure deep learning application. Just by a single scan, you can find out several things. And it has just become possible because deep learning can go really in deep and find out the exact pattern of the retina, how it is different than the pattern of another person. Right? So that is the tremendous power of deep learning or machine learning right now. Second most important thing done by Google again is chances of readmission. You see, once the person is in ICU, there are challenges by the doctor based on hundreds of parameters and based on previous experience of doctor. He or she has to take a decision that person should be out of the ICU, he should be kept in ICU. See, keeping ICU is a safe thing, but at the same time, it is costly affair for the patient. And nowadays, even ICUs are not available because of Corona and other problems. So, doctor needs to take a calculated risk. And now, Google has demonstrated that algorithms are taking better or equal decisions as expert doctors. Right. So that's a remarkable success again in case of healthcare, which has been given by Google based on a lot of combinations of parameters and a lot of parameters as well. This is one of my favorite applications. Now the accuracy is 99. This is slightly an old picture where if you try to speak, okay, and you are not actually taking your voice out, you're just moving your lips, and a camera in front of you will capture your lip movement, and the speaker of your attached to your camera after the deep learning algorithm works is speaking what you try to speak. Right, so the $1 million application where a person loses his vocal cord, then you just move the lips, and by the lips movement, you get a voice of a person, which is of 99% accuracy. Right, so this is a LeapNet. You can get an excellent video on Google if you want to know more about that. So it's a multi-million dollar application. It is based on image processing, obviously, right? And no human expert can do that more than 50% accurate. The expert of the entire world, they have compared with one of the experts, and he could get only 50% accuracy, where the AI algorithm could reach up to 99% accuracy. So this is again a medical application which is already being sold. A lot of opportunities in case of genomes data, very difficult to decode, but using AI, machine learning, and deep learning, you can decode that as well. and you can find out exactly which is the gene responsible for this kind of defects, and even now why, using explainable AI. So one of my students is doing PhD in this. And the future is in precision medicine. Right now, if you have a headache, you take crocin maybe, okay, paracetamol, whatever you take. And then, but there are a lot of side effects also of that. Reason is, ideally you should be given a controlled dose of that particular molecule based on several factors, based on definitely your pain, but based on your lifestyle, based on your genetic condition as well, right? And then the quality and quantity of the dose, it means needs to be controlled and it should be different for a different person, and that is precision medicine. So it's going to come now, a huge investment by US government in precision medicine already since Obama was the president, and now it's going to be the reality soon as well. So this is also one of the very important challenge where you need to combine a lot of parameters. So it's like a multimodal fusion, and then you predict that which medicine, how much is the medicine to be given. On cancer treatment, this has been already operational in some of the hospitals where the same chemotherapy will not be given based on the person, based on how person is living, his lifestyle, based on his genetic condition, which are the genes derived from the parents. Based on that, the therapy is given, and which is found to be most effective and having least possible side effect. So this is also a future in precision medicine, but a lot of starting results have come from domain of cancer. Very important problem of 21st century is mental health of a particular person. I think with the growing facilities and growing physical comforts, I think mental health has been deteriorated in general in the entire world. And there are a lot of maximum number of suicide attempts or suicides are done now compared to entire history of this earth. And maybe because of technology, maybe because of social media, and maybe because of several other reasons, because we don't have true friends, maybe we have a fake friends on Facebook. And if you want to analyze the mental health of a person, it's not that difficult. If the person starts getting in isolation, person start losing the friends, I'm sure there are some issues which needs to be counseled. So finding this kind of outlier using machine learning or deep learning is not difficult, and there are a lot of attempts have been done in finding the mental health of a person, but still there are a lot of open problems as well. In Israel, it was demonstrated to have an AI-based spine surgery, which is considered to be the most difficult surgery, but it was done with almost 100% accuracy. It's 98.9, but it's definitely quite better than the human experts. So that is also the power of AI. Now I will tell about few of the challenges which are to be resolved before you apply AI to healthcare. But I consider them as opportunities because in 21st century it is always difficult to get a right problem. Once problem is given, solutions are not that difficult. But getting a right problem so that if you solve that particular problem, you can be successful in life. Right? So this kind of right problem, and that's what I'm trying to give you some of the problems here, which are definite opportunities. Those who want to work in AI plus healthcare, want to do the research. One of the step of a research is a PhD, but actual research starts after that, maybe lifelong. And that's what, whatever the 10 opportunities I'm trying to present, all 10 have a huge future now, and I'm sure that you will start working in that if you are interested in that, right? And if you like them as well. So the first challenge which AI faces right now is this one. The challenge is, if I want to use AI for healthcare, I have a medical report of a particular person. I have some clinical data. I have demographic information about a particular person, and my actual predict of this disease should be based on all this. For example, a very simple right now example is if you have a maybe cough and a cold, and if you're too young, okay, and your immunity is really good, you need not to worry. There may be hundreds of other reasons because of that. It's not only corona. We have a panic in the society right now, but otherwise there are hundreds of other reasons which is possible other than one of the disease, which is corona. Right? So you need to combine several such things. You need to combine maybe pathological report. Some of the findings for corona is O positive blood group having least chances of getting corona. There are a lot of research is getting right now, and all this needs to be fed in before predicting better, right? So how to do that? How to combine? Because one is text, one is handwritten somewhere, one is image of your maybe chest scan. So how to combine them? The solution is you need to know something called multimodal deep learning, right? Whereby you can combine image or maybe text. It's not only image and text, it may be audio as well, it may be video as well. So any other modality, you should be able to combine and do the prediction. The example which I have given is something different, which tells that I can combine image. I can ask the question to the image and its answer is coming in text, and that's what LSTM is used here. Right? So this is an application which has been solved, right? So the point here is in multimodal deep learning, you can do combination of various modalities here, and which is need of the day if you want to use AI for healthcare. And there are a lot of successes as well. This particular slide shows that patient information, medical records, some other data, maybe other experts views, and your medical images all can be combined to get final decision. Right? So this is called multimodal data fusion. But saying is very easy. How to fuse them is an important task, and there are a lot of challenges there. Even within multimodal, there are 5 different challenges, right? The first challenge is how to represent the data. It should be joined, should be coordinated. For simplest possible is, you have a vector for image. Will you concatenate the vector of the text below that, right? Or what will you do? So these are challenges. This is one of the challenge within multimodal deep learning. There can be challenge like which kind of alignment will you do? I have an image modality, so pixels. I have a text modality, so some embedding here. How to map this to this is a challenge. There may be third challenge where I should do early fusion or late fusion. It means I should combine image and text and then use the classifier, or I can do classifier in both the cases. I can classify using image, I can classify using text, and then combine the results, right? Based on the dominancy of the results or based on the weighted sum of the results or something. So this is also a challenge, right? So there are large number of challenges, even if you want to use just a multimodal deep learning. The fourth challenge within that multimodal is translation, right? So it should be model driven or example based, right? I'm not going in detail. As I mentioned, I'm trying to give you a lot of questions today, and you can think one of them you choose and you can continue your journey of research there. And the fourth one or fifth one is co-learning. In one of the modality, you have a lot of data available, maybe in image, but in second modality, maybe in text, you don't have much data. Can you do transfer learning from one modality to another modality? Right. So that is also one of the important research topic. So here, some of the work is done in all 5 directions, but still there are a lot many things to do. So this is one of the challenge of using AI for healthcare, which is called multimodal deep learning, which is summarized here. Now, there's a second challenge. Second challenge is we have trained model on one kind of environment, how to use this model in different test conditions. This is normal. This normally happens. In a layman's language, if I give an example, if I design an autonomous car for India, will it work in France? It will not work, or vice versa as well, right? Because the conditions are different. Even though the task remains same, the domain where the features are coming changes. And that happens in every situation. If you have Alexa at home, Alexa is trained by some particular voice, but your voice, it works. How it works? Because of this. There's a solution here as well once the domain changes, right? And it is called domain adaptation. If you train the network or neural network for this, characters or this, numericals, then it should work here as well without using some techniques, which is called domain adaptation. Here, your accuracy will be tends to 0, even though accuracy may be 100% here. So it means algorithm fails. But if you do something called domain adaptation, which is one of the second area, open area where you can work a lot. In that case, it will work even if training image is this kind of, and testing images are this kind of, right? So this is a second area where you can work. Of course, almost 125 good papers have been published in this area in last couple of years, but still there are a lot of challenges and a lot of solutions possible here. In medical domain, because everywhere I'm giving one example of medical domain, it has been already used, whereby you have a sample which is prepared in one of the laboratory, and using all the samples of that laboratory, you can classify that sample correctly. But now same algorithm should work on another laboratory sample as well, where the procedure of making the sample is little bit different. And that's what, if you use without domain adaptation kind of tricks, it will miserably fail in this case, right? So there is a successful demonstration of this, particularly in a very, very critical disease where sample preparation will vary from laboratory to laboratory. You cannot make it uniform at all. This is one of the applications. There are a large number of such applications possible. So in this case, you have to use something called domain adaptation. If you use that, then even your test domain is different, it will work. Like I given an example of a car, which will work in India, it ideally should work in other countries as well, right? But it is going to be very difficult unless otherwise you do domain adaptation. So there are large number of methods in domain adaptation, and these are the methods in fact, right? This is not same as transfer learning. In transfer learning, you don't have a source data, you have a source model and you transfer. But domain adaptation is, there are source-free domain adaptation, there is something called federated domain adaptation, online domain adaptation, and so on and so forth. So again, because I need to wind up by 12, I'm not going in detail of any of this method. Itself is a 3-hour talk, in fact. But this is a second method which is highly required to learn if you really want to use AI for healthcare. Challenge number 3 is, if this is a normal and universal challenge, we have a very limited labels for training data, how to train deep learning models. Because as I started with, that deep learning requires huge amount of training data, otherwise it will not work. The model will fail. It's a data hungry model, in fact, and computation hungry model as well. So even if you have a small amount of data and still you want to make your algorithm better, what are the ways? There are 2 solutions here. One solution I'm sure everyone knows, and that is called data augmentation, where if this image is given, you can create using computer different kinds of image, which is same as this butterfly, and that's what decolorize or several other things. You can rotate also. These are not the exhaustive listing I have made, but data augmentation is one of the method. Using that, from one you can maybe get 10 different kind of images, and then use that for training. So this is one of the method, and there are a lot of work has been done in data augmentation as well. But it's risky to use data augmentation just like this in case of medical domain, because your left ear cannot be same as right ear, right? Your left lung cannot be same as right, and it's going to be very, very difficult if you use data augmentation techniques in case of medical domain. You can use obviously, but very selectively. It should not change the total orientation or total disease outlook in that case. Second solution, which is a research topic right now, and a lot of work is getting done, is called few sort learning. So few sort means only using few examples you can train. So if you see human beings, we can do that. if even a small child, if you just show the small pictures of dog, it can find out once it sees the new dog in 1 or 2 examples only. They don't require 10,000 examples, right? So if you want to capture this kind of phenomena, what you need to do, you need to recollect your prior knowledge. So these are the prior pictures I have seen. Now for this category of dog, I have a very, very limited number of pictures, but then also I can classify because I'm augmenting that prior knowledge with which is there of that particular domain in my mind, and I'm using that. Right, so it's a very, very interesting topic whereby using very small number of actual examples of a particular domain, still you can train the model because you have a prior history. We don't learn everything by scratch every day. We have something in our mind which we correlate. So similar way the computer is doing now in few short learning. So I can imagine it's a very advanced topic and lot of analogy with the how we think, how the brain works required to be understood. But in that case, you can do wonders because you can train the model accurately with very, very less examples, which is going to happen in any of the practical applications for sure. So what it does, I just try to explain in a very layman's language. So this is traditional machine learning where performance of the task T improves with respect to experience, right? But in case of few short learning, the experience is having two portions. One is some supervised information like this, but same time there is a prior knowledge as well. We as a human beings always use our prior knowledge, our IQ to solve a particular problem, which is a new problem. Right? It's very obvious for us. It was not obvious before the invention of this few short learning. Now it does this as well. So this is one more problem, which is called labeling problem, or labels are not available or very less labels are available to train a machine learning model, but using data augmentation, which is, as I mentioned, very tricky in case of healthcare domain, but still can be used in a restricted way. Or second is few short learning. So there are two solutions for this challenge as well. So there are successes in medical domain using few short learning. So this is one of the example where it has been sold by Stanford University, where skin cancer by a single photograph or maybe couple of photographs of a particular person, and the training data is available is very, very less. So they have used the previous methods or previous images of skin cancer as a prior, right, in that deep learning model, and it has been found really very successful. So these are the work which are at very initial stage. Google, Microsoft, this kind of multinationals are doing. It is not reached to laboratories like us, very limited one. So I'm sure you can be the front runner if you select one of them and start working on that. So there are various challenges and various models available in few short learning. Maybe one is data driven, one is model driven, and there is one more which is algorithm driven. Right? So you can select any out of that, and you can use few short learning. So these are the three challenges, and the next one is the fourth one. Challenge number 4 tells is we need to find out images containing tumors, for example, in medical domain, and at the same time we need to segment. See, the typical problem is there are a lot of images given to you. Some of the images are having tumors, and some suppose it's a brain scan, and some of the images are having tumors, some of them are not having tumors, right? The images where there is a tumor, I should not stop there with telling yes. I need to find out exact location of the tumor as well, because finally at the end of the day, doctor needs to operate. So there are two tasks to be done together. Okay. One thing you can do is you train the model which will classify that. Separate out the images where there are tumors. After that, you take that image, again run a segmentation algorithm and find out exact tumor. There are two different tasks to be done. But the researchers have found a different way. We can do multitasking. Doctors will do multitasking. It will not, they will not do just separate out and then take one by one and find out their segmentation. Once they find the tumor, they know the location as well. right? So that way we need to do in machine learning algorithm as well, whereby both the tasks to be done simultaneously. One is classification and one is segmentation, right? And that leads to a new technology, which is also very, very popular now, and that is called multitask learning. So in single task learning, which generally we do, we have a training data, we have model number 1, then second training data, we get model number 2, third training data, we get model number 3, and then we work individually on them. Or we may arrange them in a sequential fashion, that model 1 will classify. After the success of the model 1 output, we feed into model 2 and it will do maybe segmentation, maybe model 3 will do something more detailed about that, right? But now in multitask learning, you need to do this. It has been proved that multitask learning, you get solution of the problem faster and with lesser time and lesser efforts as well. And lesser number of parameters are also there, right? Which will be used in training, because ultimately it is inherently multitask. So multitask learning is also a very, very good research topic now, and particularly if you want to use in AI plus healthcare. So if, for example, if I want to do multitask for vision, I can have a same network, and then after few layers, network bifurcates, and this particular output is, there is a face inside this picture or not. If there is a face, what is the pose of a face? And what are the facial landmarks? I can find out all three together. In traditional way, what is done? One network will find out this particular image contains a face of a person or not. You separate them out, again train a new network which will find out the pose of that. Again train a new network which will find out the facial landmarks of that. But all three together is called multitask learning. So there are a lot of advantages of doing multitask learning, particularly time saving, and that is to be attempted now. So there also, again, Stanford University, same algorithm has developed, that it's also find out classification as well as segmentation. And category of the cancer, skin cancer, is also being found. So that is because of multitask learning. So this was the fourth challenge and the solution. And there are several ways I can explain that. Segmentation and classification was done in parallel. This is of course a block diagram of a network, which we are not going in detail today. A lot of algorithms are developed. A lot of problems are solved already in medical domain using multitask learning. The important challenges of multitask learning is when to share, what to share, and how to share. When to share means there are two different tasks given. Should you use multitask learning or not? That's an important decision to be taken. It's not every possible application you can combine. Then once you decide, then what to share? You can share parameters, you can share predictions, or you can share the model, you can share the algorithm to train, which is to be shared. We don't know. So there are options there, and we need to select one which is best out of it. And then how to share. So once you decide strategies, exactly how to implement that multitask learning. So these are some of the open challenges within multitask learning as well, which one has to learn. So we have, as I mentioned, I'll be covering 10 challenges, and that ends my talk. I already covered 4. We'll have a recap at last, but this is the 5th challenge. The challenge is how to develop capabilities of learning to learn. I'm sure every other person now tells learning to learn. You must be also telling students learning to learn. That is the future. Why? Because your knowledge gets obsolete very fast, so you need to be continuously learning. Right? So how to develop this kind of capabilities in machine learning algorithm, and how to learn new concepts and skills faster with few examples. Right? You must be telling to your students that you learn C and Python very well, or at least C very well, but you also know that by the time they graduate, there'll be something different. But what you tell them, that based on these fundamentals, if something new comes, you'll be immediately able to learn. Without these fundamentals, it is not possible. Right? So you always tell them that learn fundamental basic things, make yourself street smart, so that any new things come, you can easily learn, you can learn faster as well. Right? So similar thing must be there with machine learning as well, because algorithm If you want to see algorithm as like human being learns faster, algorithm also should learn faster for the new situation, right? So that particular challenge is solved using something called meta learning, which is also a very, very important research topic now. The example which I have given, you train network for cat and dog, you train the network for apple and orange, and you test also. So all this knowledge is available to you. And then you try to do classification for different images. It will be faster because the network knows some small parameters how to find out the pattern, right? So this is very, very similar to human beings, where we use our, again, a previous knowledge, like I told you, few sort learning. There's a thin boundary between few sort learning and meta learning, but this is where a lot of prior data is available to the model and you learn out of it, so that your new task learning will becomes very easy, right? So that is meta learning. It has been also successfully used again by a couple of papers I have read, in that it has been successfully used where previous experience have been stored, previous data has been used, and the new task has been solved systematically and faster as well. Lot of again, issues and challenges within meta learning as well. You can see exhaustive list here. Every direction people have tried, researchers have tried to use, but still there are a lot of open problems in this as well. So we are at half in challenges. Challenge number 6 is we want to use data from several hospitals to design a predictive model. However, we need to preserve privacy of the data and follow the standards. HIPAA standard is one of them. How to achieve this? Right? So for example, I want to do a prediction for corona disease and all the hospitals are having some data. They won't give me because of privacy issues maybe. Then also I want to use that data by my algorithm without getting actual data. Is that possible or not? So now, fortunately, the answer is yes. Because if I do that, the privacy is automatically preserved, which is highly required now in medical domain, right? And the answer is federated machine learning. So there is a new branch of machine learning. Those who are knowing distributed machine learning, this is distributed machine learning. It's like algorithms are running at different places. So if I explain in a layman's language, data will not travel to the algorithm. Algorithms will go to the data. Exactly reverse. So my machine learning algorithm from the central location go to all the hospitals, run there, and you know that finally the weights of the neural network are important. So it will travel to me, or maybe the gradient direction is important. So it will travel to me. The central location, I'll aggregate all of them. So my model will improve. So again, that model I'll send to all hospitals. Again, from the new data, it will learn and come back. That is called federated machine learning. So it's now most popular algorithm right now as far as AI plus healthcare is concerned. So this is one of the things I told. You can send the gradients to different places, and these are the data, and this is machine learning algorithm running at on the data, and finally at this central server it is assembled. Results are assembled, so algorithm will become better. Again, the algorithm is distributed to the different hospitals. Large number of challenges here as well. Maybe there is something called horizontal federated machine learning or vertical federated machine learning. This should be used where there's a large overlap of features. This should be used where there's a large overlap of patients, not features, but different kinds of patients. And there are several other challenges as well, right? So this itself is an area huge in demand right now because of, automatically it preserves the privacy, which is a central core for any machine learning algorithm applied to healthcare. The next challenge is, are our machine learning models secure? Because we need to worry about our security of the models. Can we fool the machine learning models, right? Because everyone must be knowing that common sense is missing in machine learning, and it is uncommon otherwise also. So can you cheat machine learning algorithm as a human being? so that it will behave in an irrational way? In fact, the answer is yes. It's very easy that you can steal the machine learning model as well. Right? So, what are the solutions? Solution is adversarial machine learning. You need to protect, you need to make the algorithm very robust so that nobody will be able to steal or cheat the machine learning algorithm. What is adversarial machine learning? It's very simply demonstrated. Those who know, if there is a stop sign, this is image. You add some noise so that image will look same as this, but computer will recognize as this. It's too much, right? Just a small noise if you add, extremely small noise, your visually this will be stopped, but internally computer algorithm will feel it is go. It's possible to do in less than half an hour if you know Python, right? So very, very easy to do. That's a smallest cheating to the algorithm. You can imagine in autonomous car, it is done, right? There will be a chaos on the traffic signal. It has been demonstrated as well. Actually, this is visually it is some animal, but actually it is not. It is toaster for the machine. It's the image of a toaster, right? Because the beat map of toaster matches with the beat map of this, even though visually it is different, right? So this is a hacked image, right? So it's very easy to fool and very easy to steal also. For example, let me give one scenario whereby I am a machine learning expert. I have deployed my algorithm whereby if you send me online image of your chest X-ray, I will tell what is the possibility of COVID in you, right? For example, I have developed that machine learning system. I have placed a web-based application and I'm making money out of it. That if you just put a chest X-ray, I will give you the prediction and you pay me this much. Now, you on the other side as a user, what you can do is you can go on testing several such X-rays. You can generate a data because you put some X-ray, I will tell 85%. So you have a label, data and the answer. You put second X-ray, so you have a second X-ray and your answer as well, COVID possibilities or whatever, right? So you have a data set available. Once you have a data set available, which you have generated by querying my model, you can make your own model. Then you need to pay. In fact, you start business from my model, right? Because you learn from my model actually. So this is very easy. So you need to prevent this kind of stealing of the model as well, which is also a very, very open area. Like network security, I've been teaching and listening network security or head of network security since last 20, 25, 30 years. Still, it is an unsolved problem completely. So this is also an unsolved problem right now as well. So you can walk in that. You imagine in medical domain, some noise is added to your image so that this particular image is not having cancer, but this image is having cancer. So if you imagine some doctor or someone tries to cheat, some technological guy tries to cheat that any image taken from an person will be having cancer. Right? It's possible to do because machine can be easily possible to fool. Right? So this kind of attacks are very easy in healthcare domain, which to be prevented. So this is again a very, very important area before you actually deploy a machine learning algorithm for healthcare, which is called adversarial machine learning, and large number of such work is getting done. In most of the areas which we have listed, my PhD students either or even BTech students are working with me in my center. Right? So all these areas we are doing some research right now. So challenge number 8 is we want to know why AI algorithm is making such predictions. AI algorithm has told me that, okay, you have maybe skin cancer, but why? Because, doctor always explain to the patient once the patient go to the doctor. But now we also expect this from, machines, because otherwise trust will not be built up. For example, if there's a banking application, if your loan is rejected, the manager will tell you that these are the results. Your credit score is not good, or your previous history is not good, or you are not capable of paying. That's a prediction coming from the algorithm, right? So that manager explains, now it should also come from algorithm. Likewise, in medical domain, anything is predicted, algorithm should be able to explain why to the patient as well. Otherwise, now the standards which are coming, particularly in European Union, it is not allowed to use AI for healthcare unless otherwise it gives the explanation as well. Right. So that's what there is a new branch which has come up, which we have a very good project with University of Queensland, and that is explainable artificial intelligence. So today it is like this: training data, machine learning, and user gets answer. But tomorrow you need to do this as well. User should know why. Otherwise, users will have a question like this: you did something, but I don't know why. But now why also? Right? So you can imagine it's a very difficult problem where even human beings sometimes fail to explain others. Now machine needs to convince and explain to the patient as well. And in a critical domain like medical, right? Otherwise will be filed immediately a sue. You know, in India it's still not common, it's coming up, but in United States or somewhere will be in jail immediately, right? So you need to explain very, very properly to everything you do to the patient. So this is a new branch of explainable AI, which is also need to be targeted if you are interested in doing research in this. So it has reached to such a level that there are now the recent one is counterfactual explanations. This is an example I have given. You were denied a loan because your income was this. That is not sufficient. Now, even the explanation should be in a positive direction as well. If your income would have been this, you would have been offered a loan. So you need to give a solution as well. Algorithm has rejected the loan, given a reason, and algorithm should also suggest that if you would have done like this, you would have got the loan as well. So it has reached to that level. Okay? So this is a very good paper on that by Harvard University in 2018, which is again explainable AI. Second last challenge, according to me, there may be more challenges. These 10 challenges we are working upon, and I found, seeing the AI literature, that they are covering most of the challenges which AI is getting right now, particularly for AI in healthcare. I have tried to cover. So, second last challenge is doctors are expert in performing surgery. How can we make robots to imitate the task? So there is a new branch which is called imitation learning, right? And that is because of inverse reinforcement learning. I don't know how many of you know this. This is an entire branch, reinforcement learning, where robots learn from the environment by making mistakes or having success, and finally does the task automatically. But there is something called inverse reinforcement learning, where agent is performing tasks, or rather an expert is performing a task. Like as a teacher, I am teaching to you, the robot will learn from my teaching style and start teaching. Amazing, right? So that is imitation learning, and that has been possible now using something called inverse reinforcement learning. So there's a huge research going on in this, because this is exactly going towards natural artificial intelligence. Successes are enormous. For example, this person is speaking, right? And what this IRL has done, that it has captured the movement of the lips of that particular person. Now this cartoon is speaking some other statement, not the same one, in the same language, but something different. Then his lips movement are same as person's movement. So you will not feel a disconnection between the lips movement and what exactly it is getting spoken there, right? And it can be possible to now convert that particular phenomena in different languages as well. This has been demonstrated. Again, what I'm telling is the person is speaking in one language, English, right? Of course, he needs to speak a lot, and a lot of data is required. After that, there is a movie, cartoon movie, let's say, and cartoon is speaking same language, definitely not the same statement as human being, right? And then your movement of the lips will be controlled by algorithm. You will feel as if the cartoon is speaking actually. Then people have done more experimentation, that he is speaking in Chinese language or some English language. and it was converted into Chinese as well, and then Chinese lips movement were also captured. Something unthinkable, right? But this is possible now with very good accuracy, speech animation using inverse reinforcement learning. Application in medical, robots will be doing surgery completely. Robot will learn observing the human being. You capture a video of doctor doing the surgery, and robot will learn exactly same. Telling is very easy. Actually doing is in 5 years research work, right? So needs to be address this particular problem, or if you're interested in reinforcement learning scenario, I'm sure this is one of the best problem right now. The last challenge, having all these things done, what is the accountability, responsibility, and transparency of AI algorithms, right? Because there are a lot of ethical issues attached to AI. For example, I always give a scenario where a car is getting driven and car knocks someone and somebody dies. Who is responsible? The owner of the car, or algorithm which is developed by an entire company? The company should be sued, or there will be so many people who has worked for that company, they should be sued. There are no answers to that, right? So what about the answers to this kind of questions, where accountability is important for an algorithm, responsibility and transparency, and this is one of the most important reason that AICTE tells that in engineering curriculum do teach humanities and social science, because finally any technical things, anything is developed, it should help the human society. It should not go against. Unless otherwise engineers know the society, they will not be able to imbibe accountability, responsibility, or transparency in these algorithms, right? So I'm sure that's what model curriculum has been designed, where there are a lot of humanities and social science courses are required. In fact, multinational companies now, software companies, they are recruiting more humanities and social science graduates now, even compared to engineering, right? In a relative way. They were recruiting maybe 95% computer engineers and 5% of humanities social science, but that percentage has changed drastically now, right? So because of this is the need now. And second need is trying to find out a best problem to solve compared to solving a problem, right? So this is the second need, and they trying to find out the best problem means knowing the society. If you know the society, know the problems, then and then you can devise that particular framework of the good problem, and then technology guy can solve that particular problem. So within that accountability, responsibility, and transparency, there are a large number of things. One is ethics or impact or responsibility, design, regulations, transparency, so on and so forth. So this is my last slide, because I feel there may be 10 minutes more for the question answers. What we started was multimodal fusion. The data is coming from two different modalities or many different modalities like text and image. We need to fuse that data before doing prediction, and that is multimodal, and there are a lot of challenges within that. If your domain of training and testing are different, I have given an example of car getting made in India and need to work in maybe France. You need to have something called domain adaptation inside your algorithm. Then and then it will be adaptive. If your training data are very less in number, you can use few sort learning or data augmentation. If two different tasks can be combined, like I have given an example of classification and segmentation together, it will be always helpful because it will be faster and having lesser number of parameters. So that is multitask learning. If you want to imbibe your previous experience, like we do as a human being, suppose somebody shows me only couple of pictures of a new animal, I can immediately classify the third one, which I have never seen, just because I have a previous experience of classifying the things and remembering something by my perception. So that is meta learning. If I want to use data from 100 different hospitals without worrying about privacy, security, without getting the data actually on my server, then I can use distributed machine learning, which is also called federated machine learning. If I want to prevent my AI algorithm from hacking or getting stale, I need to use very robust mechanism which is called adversarial machine learning. If my deep learning algorithm is predicting something, but I need to get explanations also why the prediction has been made, then there's a new branch which is explainable artificial intelligence. If I want my robot to imitate me in my daily work, there's something called inverse reinforcement learning. And last, for doing all these things, I should not forget the human values and ethics and responsibilities towards the society. And also I need to be transparent. So all these must be embedded in AI algorithms while it is getting designed. And there's a lot of research required there as well. You need to in fact form a multidisciplinary team from humanities, from law, and then of course technology, and then you can solve that. Right. So that is the next direction again, where we have one project and we just finished with Brunel University, UK. So these are the 10 different directions. I felt they are very important, particularly in AI and healthcare domain. Otherwise also they are important, but more because ultimately it's dealing with the human life. Right? So with that, I really again thank all of you for listening me. And I thank management of Somaya, principal, vice principal, and Dr. Radhika for inviting me and allowing me to share my views. Thank you very much. And I don't know if there is a possibility of any questions, we can have that.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for the session. It was an entire platform open for all those aspiring for a master's or post. I'm sure all are masters, but all post doctorate or doctorate degrees. And I have got my definition for my postdoc, which I wish I may sometimes discuss with you as well. And thank you so much for spending your valuable time and enlightening so many research directions, particularly in AI and with a great focus on healthcare. And along with that, you allowed us to visualize several other applications also. So thank you so much for your valuable time. We are open to participants if they have some questions. We just have, I think, I think 10 minutes we have.
Yeah, if they have a question, I can take.
If some
Hello.
participant, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Very good afternoon to sir and everyone participants. Sir, it was a very nice and informative session, and I like the way you have presented your session with 10 challenges, different challenges and the solutions. I have basic two questions. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So basic two questions are there. Based on my data, available data, how I can select which model to be applied for classification. And the second thing is you mentioned about third challenge related with the availability of the data. So related with that data augmentation, will data augmentation affect my classification accuracy?
Yeah. So the first answer is, it also relates to which domain you are solving the application and how much data is available. Based on that, you can select the classification model. For example, if it is generally, it's better to start with support vector machine kind of classifier because they are considered to be best one universally. But if a huge amount of data available, you can switch to deep learning method. That is the answer. Second question is data augmentation. Yes, it is very tricky, but compared to not having any data and using that algorithm which will overfit, data augmentation will be definitely better. That's what I'm not saying that it is to be done always, but there is no chance. It's like same as there is no substitute for physical teaching right now, but compared to no teaching, I think technology driven teaching is better, right? So it is same as that. Data augmentation is not that good, but we don't have a data at all. So in place of not solving the problem, use data augmentation and try to solve. That's what I can give the answer here.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So we have a question in the chat box from a participant. He asks if AI-based
conversational system in healthcare is also having huge scope. Will it be possible to list down few solutions for intent? Yes, yes. So definitely, that's definitely a good point what he is making. that is a very good application right now possible. In fact, I told someone to do a lot of research on, suppose there's a doctor and a patient who are doing the conversation. You find out the emotions of that conversations, and then now AI is going to replace the doctor or at least helping the doctor. So most of the applications, let's say telemedicine. So you are now online with a doctor, which is actually a software, and then you measure the emotions of the conversation and try to find out where the emotions are better. So how emotions are also playing a role in curing the patient. That's also a very, very good idea, because it really helps. I'm sure you will like a doctor who will talk with you for 5 minutes and tell that nothing, kuch bhi nahi hai aapko, sab kuch ho jayega. There may be second doctor who will not even talk, will tell the assistant ki usko dawai de do. Then he will not like and he will not get easily cured as well. Right? So there's a huge impact of emotions which are coming once you are talking to the doctor. So there's a lot of work possible there. It's a very good area.
Someone is asking, if we have less data, can deep learning still have good result? Which model is better for less data?
If you have less data, don't go for deep learning. Use machine learning. That is my answer. Otherwise, it will be overfitting.
In a few short learning, as it requires historical knowledge about the domain, then how is it beneficial? Ms. Purva asks.
I'm not telling it is, no, I think, yeah, I have got lesser time, so I'll not explain that. So for example, I want to categorize different animals, right? And there is a new animal also which is having lesser number of labels, right? So what I do is I train the network on the animal data where there are a lot of labels are available. I can download from internet. So this kind of knowledge about animal classification I have, and that will help me, my algorithm, because if you go in too much detail of that, my initial layers in deep learning weights are already pre-trained. It means I'm not starting with random weights, so it is going to be faster. So that way it is going to be beneficial. So again, let me put that way, that I'm trying to classify one particular animal where I have a very, very less label examples are available. What I do is similar other animals, I'll find out I have a huge data which is label. I'll use that as a prior, so that my model, the training parameters will not be randomly initialized. They will be at some particular preset level, and that makes my training and testing faster. That is the advantage of FuseSort.
Ms. Prajakta is asking that.
I'll read. Sir, can you please tell me how federated AI will work practically? Because my students were not able to work properly on Joe-based CT scans, no data available from doctor. No. If no data is available, no AI will work, and no doctor can also do something. First thing is data should be available. Data should be available at distributed locations, right? Then you need to devise an algorithm which is distributed algorithm. Right, so now you can do that in your normal Python as well, where you can make your algorithm distributed. You connect to the different servers. Your algorithm will run there and only pass few information to the central location and come back. So that is definitely possible now. But data must be available at different locations. So this is a different problem. Data is available, but they are at different locations, and you cannot get data per se. But you can run an algorithm on data and get the results to you. So that preserves the privacy of the data as well.
Thank you so much, sir. Ms. Lokre wishes to ask something. You can go ahead, unmute yourself and speak.
Sir, I want to ask, whenever engineers like us work in healthcare field, there is a need to collaborate with some hospital or doctor. Then only we can develop what they need. But in India, it is a bigger challenge. Many hospitals I have contacted, but they are not so open to collaborate. But it is not the case in other countries. I have seen researchers like doctors, engineers, they're working together at one place, and so they can get good outcome, but that is the biggest issue in India. So can you please comment on that?
Yes, you are right. We also face a lot of challenges in that. First thing, we need to change a mindset. That's what I again and again told in my talk also, that you need to tell doctors that you are never going to be replaced, but if you will not use AI with your healthcare expertise, you will be replaced by the doctors who will use AI in healthcare. That is to be told to the doctors whenever you meet. Then and then they will, otherwise it is same as, replacing the job of them. And then that's what they will not be comfortable. But it's never going to be replaced. You can give an example, which I always give, is when the computers were invented and then they were into banks. Everyone was talking that all the banks jobs are gone because of ATM and all. But I think there's a maximum opportunity right now in financial sector because the level has changed, right? But otherwise there are more opportunities. So that way you need to tell. Second, in India, there is a problem, as you rightly mentioned, just because, as I mentioned in one of the slides, number of doctors are half than the required, right? So they spend a lot of time in their OPD, so they earn a lot of money, and they invest extremely less time in research because they don't have a time. In foreign countries, it's not the case. Foreign countries, if you take a doctor, he will take 5 OPDs per day. Maybe Indian doctor may be taking 100 OPD per day. Right, so these things will change because nowadays a lot of colleges are getting open. I'm sure Somaya has also opened. We also started in medical college this year, in fact. Right, so a lot of medical colleges are getting open. So slowly that problem will go away. But your question is too valid. We have our own hospital. Then also we are facing problems to get the time of our own doctors in Symbiosis. So it's not easy. But believe me, once that is the only difficulty. Once you get that data, and once you solve, if it is a multidisciplinary problem, AI and healthcare, publishing or doing something great is not that difficult. But this breaking ice takes a lot of time. Make good doctor friends.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We are left with 2 minutes, and there's one question I want to ask. I'm sure all of the participants have it. That with so many things on your portfolio and so many responsibilities and academics and administration, how do you manage to do so much of research altogether? This is something we actually need to learn about doing multitasking.
Yeah, time is a function of interest. So time is equal to F into bracket interest. So I'm interested in research, so I can do that. As simple as that. But the most important thing is the entire day is full. So I give tips. One of the tip is, you should have your own time for 2 hours a day, maybe 5 to 7 in the morning. That time is more than enough to do a lot of research. If you try to do it in your working day schedule entire day, you will waste a lot of time. But if you have maybe morning 5 to 7, or maybe those who are can do it night, which I can't think of, maybe 2 hours a day, you find out for yourself, switch off your mobile, switch off your WhatsApp, switch off every other thing other than your focused research, then nothing is difficult at all.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Because the smartphone has been designed so that smartly you can save your time, but right now it is exactly reverse. It is taking away our time. So that we need to understand, which Steve Jobs also tells that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Very much true. And this is a strategy I think we all need to adopt, the younger generation especially. And we need to disconnect ourselves from the smartphone and spend some time on what is actually interesting and our areas of interest. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you very much. I'm receiving so many comments, and not only in the chat box, but in a WhatsApp group that we have, that it was so much an excellent session, and some messages that we would want to have, sirs, one more session. I know that's difficult, but everyone is looking forward, and I wish we can
focus
also
group
plan
because
something.
all these 10 technologies, there can be a couple of hours of session
Yes,
in
yes.
long run. So we can have it.
So we can have someday whenever time permits to you, we can have one more session of yours anytime in future, and we want to learn as much as we can. And thank you so much for spending your valuable time. And this STTP could not have begun so much well without your support. And thank you so much. On a short notice, just with one phone call, you have agreed to deliver the session. And it's a huge contribution towards the country because we are from all different parts of the nation. And everyone, if we just learn one thing, we're going to contribute so immensely. So thank you so much for your time, for the knowledge you imparted. And I'm looking forward to learning more from you and all of us, sir. Thank you so much.
Radhika, and
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, bye.
And dear participants, we may end the session right now, and I shall see you again for the next session. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, Prashant sir, you may end the call. Dear participants, we shall see you again at 2 p.m. And please note that the second session onwards will be on Microsoft Teams. You have already been provided the team link yesterday on WhatsApp group, and I shall again forward that link for easy access. Please ensure that you need to be present for the entire STTP in order to qualify for the certificate and the exam. And in case you are finding any difficulties, do let us know. You can interact with Professor Prashant Sawant. He's there in the group. And all the team members will be able to revert to you in case of any queries. Thank you so much for your patient listening. And I'm sure we're going to have a very nice STTP. Please, if possible, keep your computer available for the afternoon session. We will be using RapidMiner primarily. If you don't have it, that's not an issue. You can just see what madam is doing, the speaker is doing, and we're going to give you the recording of that session. So you may do it at a later end whenever you have the resources with you. If that's all, we can just end over here. Thank you so much to all the coordinators, all the participants, and Prashant sir, you may please end the meeting. Thank you. Jai Hind.